I've got 21 minutes, folks. We better ditch that. I stand before you as proof that there are college presidents in America who do not subscribe to the theory that the University of Heaven has a winning football team and the University of Hell has a big music school. And what I can say now is, wow. I have been so moved and so challenged and so provoked in this conversation that has been going on for the past 3 days. I am absolutely knocked out by all the things that we have seen here. Who knew that the future of classical music could be debated in Greencastle, Indiana? And we stand here at this moment, this powerful moment, at the crux between the past and the future. And the future simply must be more than an extension of the past. And we have a challenge before us. And the subtitle of my talk today is The Tyranny of the Or versus the Opportunity in the And. But before I go there, I want to say something. I like to start with stories, and I'm going to start with one story in particular here. Actually, it's kind of common, in which two people meet in an ensemble rehearsal in college. They fall in love. They go on with their lives. They get married. They have children. They live successful lives. And if you wonder, how is it possible that we could do all the stuff that we did and had the great meals that we had and see the Kronos Quartet and Dakota and all these great performers and all these great presenters, all at such a really cheap price? I have a 4-word answer for you, and that's Judson and Joyce Green. They're here, and I want you to say thank you. So, two things I want to say about that. One is these are phenomenal musicians who graduated from DePauw and went on and are finding ways to give back in lots of ways. And a lot of the stuff that you've seen here is really the result of a little too much wine between Joyce, Judson, and Yo-Yo. And that's how we got where we are. The second thing that I want to say is, Caroline, that standing ovation does not come out of my time. Okay, anyway. So back to this, the tyranny of the or. You see, I think we're operating under a false binary. People suggest as if there is this problem in the world and it's a zero-sum game. You can either be a great musician or you can be an entrepreneurial musician. And that's simply not the case. The world has changed in dramatic ways, and we need to be able to embrace that. What I've loved about the 21 Symposium is, instead of what we often do, and I'm the elbow patch, pipe-smoking guy myself, but instead of what we often do, we just come together and talk about what we're doing inside the Academy. This was a look outside the Academy. This is, what are they doing out there about the future of classical music, and how do we prepare them for that? The challenge that we have inside the Academy is really pretty simple. That is that we don't see things as they are. We see things as we are. And if we are not willing to look outside and truly take a moment to find out what is going on out there and how is it that what we're doing right now in this space prepares them for that space. And I wanted to try to talk to you about the speed of change. And I'm trying to think of some ways to impress upon you this point, that the world is changing so quickly, and it is changing over and over again. How can we express this? Well, here's a pretty interesting fact. According to Science Daily, 90% of the world's data was created in the last 2 years. 90% of the world's data was created in the last 2 years. Now, despite what you might be doing now, here are some things that you were not doing 15 years ago. And you certainly weren't challenging yourself with the existential questions that you often ask Siri. The world has changed in really dramatic ways, and the speed of that change has sped up. So I began to think, how can I best demonstrate that to folks who've come in to visit us in Indiana? And then I thought, well, the Indianapolis 500, that's a fast thing, and you're all here, so let's talk about the Indianapolis 500. This is a pit stop at the Indy 500, the world's fastest car race in 1950. This is a pit stop. Now, I remember watching this when I was a kid, being amazed that you could do all of this. You could change tires, oil, fill up with gas, get a cup of coffee, get a pat on all in this incredibly fast period of time. I mean, this is fast. This is the way the world moves. That's amazing. And if it sounds like I'm vamping, I am, but this is, you couldn't do this at home this quick. I mean, this is really impressive. And the race is going on, but we got the windshield almost finished. And we're going to get there. Okay, here it comes. And look at that. Okay, there we go. 69 seconds, in fact, it takes. Now, you can't do this, but in 1950, a pit stop at the okay, pat on the back. Thanks, see you later. There you go. That was a pit stop at the world's fastest car race in 1950. Now, this is the same pit stop in 2013. And there are other differences too. They changed all 4 tires in the second one. In the first one, they all had 8th grade educations except for one guy with a high school diploma. In the second one, 3 of those people or 4 of those people had PhDs. So the world has changed, and we have to be prepared for the change. So the conversation of my talk, the title of my conversation is really 1 or 180, and let me explain that. So Yo-Yo came to town, and many of the people in this room serve on the 21CM Advisory Board. And the 21CM Advisory Board met, and Yo-Yo was chair, and he asked this simple question: how much have you changed? You know, we've been at it for 3 or 4 years. How much have you changed? And I said, well, if you ask some people, they would say, oh my gosh, that music school has done a complete 180. And he said, really, what do you think? I said, 1. It's somewhere between 1 and 180. Now, I'm probably a little too harsh, and others might be a little too generous, and I'm really proud of the change that has gone on at DePauw. But the fact is, what feels like massive change and feels like the 180 is often just the 1. And if we took all the change that we've all done in our own institutions and we added it together, I promise you, we don't get to 180. But even if we did, we'd have to do it again. Because the world is consistently changing. And what I want to challenge you with, and I want to challenge you to think about, what would happen if instead of working in the margins and tinkering around the edges and changing the things that already exist, what would happen if we changed the paradigm? What would happen instead of getting out all of your syllabi, or getting out all of your curricula, or getting out all of your degree programs, or getting out all of your processes, and getting out all your procedures? Instead of that, you just started with a simple white page. What would happen? A very wise man once told me, if you're trying to do something big, take a piece of paper and write it down on the front of 1/2 of that piece of paper. And if you can't do it, you don't know what you're trying to do. But what would happen if you started with just the blank page and started over again? Why can't we do that? Well, there's a simple answer. The reason that we can't is because of fear. We are too afraid. There is too much challenge out there. And we have had some remarkable performers come here and perform at DePauw as part of the Green Guest Artist Concert Series, and as part of our Artist in Residence Series, and part of the other things that we have going on. And we had a far cry here. Just phenomenal musicians, as so many that you've met here. All of the folks that you've met here have been here and worked with us before. And so a far cry was here, and I said something in a radio interview. And I'd encourage you to check this out at 21cm.org. There are a lot of great interviews on there. But I said in this radio interview, you guys are fearless. And I was immediately corrected. Oh, no. We are not fearless at all. Frankly, we're scared to death. We're courageous. Wow. What a great point. Of course we fear. Of course we fear. And we see these people. I've even heard Roomful of Teeth 6 times since I've been here. I've heard Roomful of Teeth being referred to as fearless. Because we see what they do, the way they embrace it. They're courageous. That's what it's about. And what is it that we're so afraid of? And the fact is that what we really fear is failure. And I think failure, frankly, gets a bad name. I think that failure is a fantastic thing. I think that, in fact, you've probably read the book by Carol Dweck, Mindset, which says there's two mindsets in the world. There's the fixed mindset that says, I can't get any better. This is as good as I'm going to be. So the best I can do is hide anything that I do wrong and make people think that I never fail. And the other is the growth mindset that says, I'm going to embrace this, I'm going to run at this, I'm going to fail openly and honestly again and again and again. And I want to tell you a little story about me getting started as a college administrator. So in my first appointment, I had lots of ways we were planning, but I had a secret legal pad in my desk drawer that I had written on the very first day that I'd taken over, and it was the 10-year plan. It was a secret 10-year plan. I didn't want anyone to see it. I was afraid I'd be incarcerated if anyone read it. So I kept it in my desk drawer, and this was my secret 10-year plan. Now, we planned in 2-year cycles and 3-year cycles and 1-year cycles and 5-year cycles. We had all kinds of things, but no one ever saw the 10-year plan. And at the end of 10 years, I pulled out that legal pad, 3 pages, single-spaced on this legal pad, and I looked down the list. I had achieved every single thing on that list. I just about broke my arm patting myself on the back. I could not believe how good I was. I did victory laps over, yay me. And about 3 days later, because I'm slow like that, it dawned on me, you're an idiot. If everything on a 10-year plan can be achieved, you don't even know how to plan. You don't even know how to think. You have no plan. That's ridiculous. You can't set it up so that everything you do succeeds. You just have to change. You have to embrace the change. And you have to think boldly, and you have to think big, and you have to go after it. And I promise you, I've failed many times since then, as my faculty that are here will tell you. And so I've gotten better at that. But I think the fact that we can own that failure is a great thing. We have to simply go boldly forward. We cannot be paralyzed by the past. And there are people, and there are examples of that. For example, this is the iPhone 7. It just came out last week. It was just announced last week. Now, in case you live in a cave and have no technology of any type, I'll give you some information that says there's no headphone jack on that phone. Now, that irritates me. There's no headphone jack on that phone. I fly a lot. I have an expensive pair of headphones. I need that dang thing. I need the jack. And you took the jack off, and Apple pissed me off so much when they did that, I got up at 4 o'clock on Friday morning and ordered one so that it would be sure to be here by next Thursday. Apple just led the way. They did that when they took out the disk drive, or the floppy. Oh, no, they can't do it without a floppy drive. Can't do it without a disk drive. Oh, no, can't do it without the DVD drive. Oh, no, they just kept blazing forward. They just kept making it happen. And there are musical examples of that, too. Gustav Mahler, probably most famous. We know his music failed during his time. And he was unfazed. He said, my time will come. What a brilliant... He blazed forward. And you look at Igor Stravinsky. Look at all that he did. And people said, you can't do that. And he just kept doing it. Matter of fact, maybe my favorite musical anecdote of all time comes from Igor Stravinsky, when he was commissioned to write a ballet, and it was a great success, but the impresario realized that it was written for too many people. He wasn't going to make any money on this. And so poor William Schumann was tasked with the responsibility of writing to Stravinsky to change his music, to write Stravinsky and say, you must change your instrumentation. And he sweated this. And then he texted, well, no, he didn't. No, he sent a telegram to Igor Stravinsky. And he sweated over this, worded it very carefully, and he wrote, ballet, a colossal success, could be even more so with some minor changes to instrumentation. He felt that was the best way to get this out to Stravinsky. Stravinsky, without hesitation, wired back, quite content with colossal success. So the point is that these people they just kept fearlessly moving forward, or courageously moving forward. And people have asked me, so how do we do this? And I'm hesitant to give any advice because I don't know. We're still here trying to figure it out. I've said this about DePauw over and over again. We haven't figured anything out. We're just asking the questions out loud. And every institution has its own truth, so you've got to figure this out. But I will give you one simple piece of truth that I absolutely believe, and that's what I said when I walked in the door. Wow, this has been an incredible thing. That's a powerful word. Wow. And you, as leaders, must subscribe and always know that you must always say wow before how. Because there is nothing that will kill energy, innovation, excitement faster than how. So someone comes in and say, I've got this great idea. And you hear it and you go, how are we going to do that? You just killed it. It's the single most killing word next to no. So instead, when someone comes in with an idea and you're fomenting this change, you're trying to get people to change, they come in and they say, what would happen if we did this? Just say, wow. Go home and sleep on it and come back. It's your job to figure out the how. It's their job to come up with the wow. Work together to make that happen, and don't let your job slow down or interfere with their job. Folks, the fact is, like objects in your rearview mirror, the future is closer than it appears. And we have to make this happen. So I'm going to close with what I think is one of the most powerful moments in all art. And you will recognize this as a close-up from the George Seurat painting, the Pointillist painting, Sunday Afternoon on the Isle of La Grande Jatte. And Stephen Sondheim wrote a musical about this called Sunday in the Park with George. And every musician and every artist I know that has ever seen this has been knocked over by it. I remember playing the show, and when this happened, I couldn't sleep. I was so knocked out by this particular moment. So George Seurat, the Pointillist painter, is painting, and he's painting that hat. And his fictional girlfriend that Sondheim put into this, appropriately named Dot, comes to him and says, it's time to go to the Follies. You promised me we would go to the Follies. And he's painting, and he's painting the hat. And he looks around and he says, we can't go to the Follies. We're painting the hat. And there's that moment that we all know so well when these two things that we love are in direct conflict, and he wants to be good to the person in his life, and he wants to be there for, but he's also finishing the hat. And he sings this beautiful soliloquy of everything that we give up as artists and how hard it is to finish the hat. And then he comes to the end of that piece, and he says one of the best lines in all of musical theater. He says, he steps back, and every one of you will recognize this. We've all felt this. He steps back, and he says, look. And the music stops. I made a hat. And that's a powerful moment. And there's a beat. And then an even more powerful line, where there never was a hat. And that's what I'm challenging you to do. Go make your hat, where there never was a hat. And as powerful as that quote is, and as many times as I've used that, and as much as it has propelled me forward, it's ironic that in that musical, there's actually one even more powerful for this setting, and that's the last one. And in the last one, he says, Dot is now there, and she's reading the words of George Seurat in a diary after his death. And she turns the page, and she says, a blank page or canvas, his favorite. So many possibilities. Thank you.